My personal beliefs oppose typical ideas from both mono and polytheistic religions. There can be no such thing as an afterlife. It may seem a harmless concept as an idea for personal betterment and as a punishable practice. See Terence Nichols for further details. Yet, that is not enough basis to make this a cast iron policy for all human life. Logic denotes that we cannot think that there is anything after our existence, as our actions in this life, lesser and spinning ever into the void of pointlessness, are thought to make sense to us. Is our society as a whole melancholic? No, because the pursuit of one's life should be the constant attainment of knowledge, a thirst for adventure, and a pursuit of wonderment that our planet, our mischievous little accident of an ecosystem, can abundantly provide us. I, for one, have accepted this answer, so I do not cry for those who are lost, because the legacy of their lessons can be continued through our actions as a species. The names of people do not have to die just because the vessels of the supposed souls depart us. I understand that in this essay I am meant to remain factual, succinct and unemotional to the point whilst quoting great scholars and effectively approve myself, yet I find this uneasy. I lean more towards subjective evidence to further relay my point. This evidence comes in the form of my dearest friend, Nicola. Now, if there was ever evidence for intelligent design, she would be one. Her voice, so clear and eloquent you could seemingly make out the white feathers of angels protruding from the grace of her smile. Perfectly beautiful, no matter how many times you told her otherwise. She will always remain part of what can only be described as right in the sea of wrong that surrounds us. 2 months ago, Nicola attempted to help me write this damn essay. She would slowly brush the strands of her long, shocking ginger hair out of her eyes just so she could see my spider-like handwriting. I remember groaning in annoyance, noticing that I'd only been writing for 20 minutes when she laughed and nudged my shin painfully. Next time you'll go to less of the socials you're invited to now, won't you? I smirked. I did regret leaving everything to the last minute. I barely remember to set my alarm most nights. I just don't have any idea where to start, I murmured, tossing my papers up and down, wondering where my life would end up in 5 years if I simply couldn't get a hand of writing a 2,000-word essay. Dr. Brickley's brief was so vague, and I have no idea what he wants. Seemingly pleading my innocence, I gazed at her unmoving posture. Her arrogance made it feel as if Plato himself was staring down upon me, judging my writing himself. Sensing my apprehension, she sighed. I can't remember the last time I wrote an essay. She sauntered to my desk to peruse over my work. I felt a stab of something that would become familiar over the next few months. Guilt. Here I am getting her to help me on an assignment that, in the scheme of things, would mean nothing when she was battling so much. And of course, she missed this so much. Don't tell me you actually miss all this crap, I laughed, looking at her furrowed brow. It would help if I have half of your intelligence, but do you miss struggling over words and wasting your nights writing an essay about things that don't really matter in the end? Well, aren't you the charmer today? She giggled and jabbed me in the ribs. She scratched her forehead, and I noticed how her scalp became red raw and looked away. Oh, how easily we crumble once we begin to see how one can pape over the cracks. Red lipstick, a hell load of foundation, and hey, you look normal for now. You look pretty even, and this is acceptable to us. The standards of beauty on the young are seemingly gargantuan, yet it astonished me to see how obedient she was to these pervasions. Can I ask you something? I mumbled, tentatively. Only if it's not a distraction technique, she smirked, lightly pressing 2 hands on her bony ribs. Can I open a window? I nodded in agreement and allowed her to adjust the bar lock. Why do you do all that? I questioned, gesturing to her face and hair. I mean, the look. It doesn't seem very me. She smiled, acknowledging my words were failing me. She tilted her head in agreement, and I once again nodded. As if she read my mind, she faced towards the window and kept trying to force open the crack. Well, I don't do it to feel comfortable. Do you think this is fun? Spending precious time dancing the charade in the mirror every morning? It's tiring. And this hair, do you think it's easy to maintain? Believe me, I try to tease it, but usually I just piss it off. She laughed a bold laugh, quoting her favourite drag queen, and I was unsure how to respond. Her frail form seemed unsteady. Tears were welling in both of our eyes, and yet I was scared, to my eternal shame, that if I held her, I would snap her in two. For example, say I am Venus, and you are... I would call you Mars, but that cliché seems too old. Let's say Jupiter, she pointed, as if knighting me with a title. Yes, I shall call you Jupiter. I'm trying to win you over with my casual adornments. Yet you'd look to other gods. What is there to stop you from that? I frowned. I thought we were talking about planets. She seemed amused in her surprise. And you're the one studying philosophy? I stuck up my hands in a mock salute, and she grasped the window again, trying to force it open desperately, like it was unwilling to give the comfort she so craved. A feeling I didn't realize until it was too late was familiar to her. Her voice began to break from its monotone, and I started to become concerned. Pay attention and you might learn something from me yet, even before it's too late. Now, to assuage the gods' desires, Venus had to compete with all the other goddesses. Many forget that there were 2 goddesses, Venus born unto Diane. Venus, the goddess of spiritual love, and Aphrodite, the goddess of physical love. Is it not extraordinary that these 2 could not be one of the same? Well, thank goodness, for one simply cannot appreciate the beauty of one thing without making it divine, now can we? She looked at me for approval, but I regret I had to look away. This display was coming too much for me, and my unbelievably pathetic lack of complex morality, I couldn't look at her. Why couldn't I look at her? Well, I didn't have much of a chance to assuage you before. Since my diagnosis, I have to work extra hard to please. Don't say that! I spat. I didn't mean to upset you, and I can't imagine what you're going through, and I'm not going to try. How can I even? But there's no need to... You shouldn't... Remind you? Which words? Which words am I not allowed to say? She laughed, incredulously. Words, language, communication, it's simply inflections of phonation. They're harmless in themselves. The D word, I stated, too abashed and ashamed to look directly at her. The very sound felt dirty. Oh, now you just sound childish. Use your adult words, she cackled coldly. An unpolished and sterile silence made her throw her arms into the air. She became the very definition of impatience as she went back to the window. The physical embodiment of fatigue, the silence was broken with a choked utterance. Malignant? That's a pretty bad word. I cringed as soon as the words left her lips. Or terminal. That's pretty sick. If you'll pardon the pun. Shut up, I whispered. Pestilence? Bile? Have I made my point? But hey, let's go for the killer. Cancer. That's one of the worst words, isn't it? Shut up, Nicola! I screamed. Pushing her out of my way, I grabbed the arm of the lever to open the hatch of the window. Storming out of the room, I grabbed an old bottle of Relentless and poured it haphazardly into a tumbler. I slabbed about my cupboards until I found a bottle of whiskey from my birthday and filled the rest of the glass. In one gulp, I had consumed the entire drink. I only came to my senses when I heard soft sobbing coming from inside my bedroom. Nicola was sitting on the bed now. Her wig had cascaded to the floor like a torn garment and a disused towel. Her head was in her hands, and her entire being emanated shame, something she should not have felt. Sheepishly I approached her, bearing makeup wipes to wipe away the inevitable smudge on her tear-stained face. She accepted it and quickly fixed her sadness into a porcelain smile. I'm sorry, I'm just getting pissed off about it lately. This whole death business. Oh yeah, they're doing everything these days, but I can't seem to turn myself away from the topic. My deliverance. She tossed herself onto the bed and I sat beside her. It seems inconceivable that we know so much and yet have hardly scraped the surface. There are 10 sextillion particles in the universe that we can observe, yet we can't decide on what made us. We have exact figures on just how much money is being spent on political campaigns in and out of third world countries, yet we can't beat this one disease. Tears welled in her eyes again. I was brave enough to look this time. I guess what it boils down to is she looked at me with genuine fear and sorrow in her eyes. I'm not scared anymore. I'm not scared to die, and that worries me. This is it. After this, I'm gone. That's all I know for sure. What impact will I have made? Will I be of use to anyone? If not, I want to experience things I know I can't. I want to become a mother. More of a friend. I want to be a lover. I want to be. And if that doesn't scream humanity, I don't know what does. I'm 21. She began trembling as she fell into my arms. I'm not scared of death yet. But I don't want to die. I have too much left to see. I had no words. Yet looking back, I don't think any were needed. I held her for the longest time until she remembered how to laugh again. I wouldn't release her until I saw that smile that lit up my room once again. We put on Robin Williams just to keep the theme of happiness going. I think that night would be the most enlightening of both of our lives. For her, it explained the importance of being unapologetic to anyone about who exactly she is, just so they would feel comfortable. And for me, it made one thing clear. Suppose there is a God, a benevolent being who watches us upon all of creation. I understand he must be very busy. I mean, there isn't just one universe, right? But how can this happen? You cannot explain the beauty of Niagara Falls, divine and pure, and then ignore all of Venus's existence. So simply put, if there is an afterlife, I don't want to meet the owner. I don't want to be given an eternity of peace if part of me knows that there is a child starving due to the gluttony of others. How could I live in anywhere carefree then? How could I not feel selfish? Nicola didn't wear an ounce of makeup or her wig again. Not even at the funeral. There she lay, natural and perfect, just as everyone wanted to see. She wasn't apologising even then, which made me ever so proud, and ever so glad I was brave, and I was happy. Lucky to even know such an amazing woman. I couldn't watch the entire thing. It didn't seem authentic. After what Nicola and I had shared, I didn't want this to end on a funeral song. I wanted to remember the wisecracking, sassy fireball of an intellect that we would all be lesser without. I wanted to remember Venus as a goddess on her Cythera island, not confined to that wooden box. In our yearbook, a section had been dedicated to Nicola's memory. I was given the immense privilege, in which I will be forever proud to hold, of writing a quote from her. What would really resonate? And despite the words of 1,000 philosophers, I chose a comedian to say how much Nicola's memory would be ever alive. Remember this: the angels only have wings because they take themselves lightly. To repeat, the pursuit of one's life really should be within knowledge. I do not cry for those who are lost, because the legacy of their lessons can be continued through our actions as friends, lovers, mothers and fathers, and if you're lucky enough, children. The names of people do not have to die just because the vessels of the supposed souls depart. Because Nicola reminds me every day that life is fleeting. So make it spectacular regardless of what awaits us. I know I will. We can learn from the death of a loved one. I thought I would do nothing but cry when she finally left. But every morning, I don't wake up to the sounds of my tears, but to the ringing of an alarm clock.